Hello, in this video, I'm going to tell you about drive states and motivated behaviors of the hypothalamus. So first off, what do we mean by motivated behavior? Now, that term can mean different things depending on the context or what area of science that you're studying. But in this case, I'm talking about um, behaviors that are driven by the hypothalamus. So motivated behaviors of the hypothalamus that are usually related to pleasure seeking, survival, or regulating homeostasis. And that's what I'm discussing here. So, what is a motivated behavior? It's an intentional, purposeful movement that is goal oriented, goal directed, or goal driven. Okay, so it is some kind of physical movement of your body with a purpose. You're aiming towards solving some kind of problem, usually. It's innate, instinctive behaviors rather than cognitively driven. So we're talking about movements and behaviors that are instinctive to solve whatever problem you're having right now, as opposed to cognitively driven behaviors, like where you think about it and come up with a plan or something that you want to do. That's different. So motivated behaviors of the hypothalamus occur when there's an internal or external change that activates a behavioral response. So there's some kind of stimulus, whether it be an internal stimulus or an external stimulus, that generates a response from the hypothalamus. So internally, we could be talking about things like temperature, blood pressure, all sorts of internal conditions that we are monitoring. An external change could be a person walks into the room or you're confronted with a bear or whatever it might be. Something outside of the body happens or there's some kind of change that requires a behavioral response. Motivated behaviors are often pleasurable, not always, but they can be, often because it feels good to solve the problem that the motivated behavior is solving. Like, for example, it can be pleasurable to eat, partly because it feels good to eat when you're hungry. It feels good to solve that problem. So drive states produce motivated behaviors in the hypothalamus. So what is a drive state? It's a physiological or homeostatic instance of motivation. It involves heightened arousal and it prepares us for action. So like, for example, it can be hard to fall asleep at night if you're really hungry. And that's partly because you're in a state of heightened arousal because your body is prepared to act on the need to eat. So if you're very hungry, you're going to be sort of wired a little bit. You're going to be in a heightened state because you are ready to take action to solve the problem, to seek food or whatever you need to do to get food so that you're not hungry. Drive states also steer behavior toward positive goals and away from negative ones. So our drive states are classified very broadly into two basic categories. Essentially, was the stimulus internal or external? So the first one, changes in internal physical conditions like hunger, thirst, and temperature that drive us to regulate these conditions. So the first category of drive states are basically things that are to help us maintain homeostasis. So there's some kind of physical condition internally, something going on that we need to act on. We need to have some kind of behavior so that we can, address the problem. And then the second category is personal or social aspirations acquired by experience. So through experience, interacting with others, we learn about things that might be pleasurable, like intercourse, for example, or social things that drive us, like caring for our offspring. So it tends to be more external types of stimuli that generate drive states, or drive states that are caused by external stimuli that generate motivated behaviors to solve the problem, essentially. So drive states are related to survival, pretty generally speaking. So in the immediate, it's things like eating or putting on a sweater if you're cold. On the long term, it could be things like sexual behavior or caring for offspring. So sexual behavior and caring for offspring aren't immediately related to your own personal survival, but those are behaviors that are related to the survival of the species. So to sum up drive states, the three basic functions of drive states are to direct behavior toward or away from a specific goal, to organize individual behaviors into a coherent, goal-oriented sequence, and to increase general alertness to enable action. So I want to talk a little bit more about the second one here, organizing individual behaviors into a coherent, goal-oriented sequence. So for example, let's say you're outside and it starts to get a little breezy and you're getting cold. So maybe the motivated behavior in that case is that you need to put on a sweatshirt or something to warm yourself up, or you need a blanket or something. So if there isn't one immediately available to you, there isn't a sweatshirt sitting on the table right next to you, then it's going to require a series of behaviors or a series of actions to achieve the goal of warming yourself. So maybe you need to go inside and get it, or go to your car, or go to a store, or whatever it might be. But you might have a series of actions that are required to achieve the goal. All right, so a few specific examples of motivated behaviors that are generated by the hypothalamus. First, we have the four F's: fight, flee, feed, and fornicate. So, fight, aggression in response to a perceived physical threat. Fleeing, so running away in response to a perceived physical threat. So, those are both in response to an external stimuli. Feed, eating because you're hungry. That's in response to an internal stimulus. Fornicate, engaging in sexual behavior in response to stimulation. So it could be physical, visual, mental stimulation. These can involve learned habits and subjective feelings of pleasure that increase this drive. So the drive is there from the beginning. The drive is always there. Because it's necessary to continue our species. But with learned subjective feelings of pleasure, it does increase this drive because we do learn with experience what is good or what is pleasurable and what is not. So that increases that drive over time. Temperature regulation is another great example. So taking action because you're too hot or too cold. Similarly, thirst, drinking water because you're thirsty. So a lot of our internal conditions, although our homeostatic mechanisms are in place to regulate homeostasis, like temperature regulation, for example. We could talk about all the physiological features in our body that help us regulate temperature. But that's only within a certain range of temperature. If you're in extreme heat or extreme cold, you need to do something more than just what your body systems are capable of to maintain homeostasis. Like if you go out in a blizzard without a coat, there's no amount of temperature regulation that your body is capable of without the motivated behavior of seeking warmth to save your life in that case. All right, well, thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!